Hey guys, thanks for joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. For your returning listener, it's great to have you back. If you're new to the channel, really glad you joined us. You picked a great episode. If this is your first episode, we have an outstanding guest that's coming on. His name is Jack Glennon. He is a coach that coaches largely in leadership and in sales and uh, some finance stuff. He's a speaker. He's got a very broad and deep history, not only in his professional life, but in his personal life. And he's got some crazy stories to share with us that have kind of taught him a lot of the things that he knows now that he shares and uses in his coaching business. So you're going to love him. He's a great guy. He's very captivating. And we're really excited to bring him on the podcast. So let's do it right now. Let's bring Jack on. So, Jack, thank you so much for joining us at Salty Ginger Talk tonight. Just really happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I know we're literally opposite sides of the world, but it's great to connect.
Yeah, that's, it's funny, we can talk about it a little bit, but social media has its advantages, this being one of them. I think we're kind of opening our eyes now to some of the disadvantages or negative impacts that social media has. But this part, like, I love it. I've been able to, so for the listeners, Jack can get into it, but he's in Brisbane, Australia, and I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. But I've had several folks from Australia on. I've had people from Romania, from Denmark, from the UK, from Canada, all over, literally all over the world. And to be able to have these awesome conversations and meet these awesome people that exist everywhere, like, I'm pro technology for sure as it relates to those things. I just think we got to be more thoughtful about how we use it and the impacts it has on us sometimes.
I couldn't agree more. I think we're very. Um, I'm going to use a funny reference. I'm going to use a Jurassic Park reference. We ironically, I don't know why it came to my head, but we often do things because we think we could, not necessarily whether we think we should.
Yeah, right.
Um,
That's a great Jeff Goldblum line from that movie. I
it's
love
awesome.
that line. Yes.
And technology is a perfect example of that. But you're right. I mean, social media's got so much plus points. I connect with people across the globe as well. And it's brilliant to get that exposure. But the flip side comes the other part of exposure.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, what we usually do just to kick off the podcast is have our guests give kind of a broad overview of who they are and what they're all about. Start kind of, graduating high school, making your way through your adult life to where you are now, just speaking in general terms. And then we go back and do the deep dive on the critical moments, the important stuff, and kind of dig into things from there. So, if you'd be so kind, kind of let the audience know who you are and what you're all about.
Absolutely. I'll do my best to do a short version because it's been a pleasure and a joy, but it's definitely been a life that I've had a journey of, which has
Hmm.
been great. So, yes, my name is Jack Glennon. I'm a professional business leadership and career coach, as you said, based here in Brisbane. Whether your audience picks up or not, my accent doesn't necessarily come across very Australian, because originally I'm not. I've been over here now for just over 15 years, but originally I'm from the UK. So I grew up in the UK in the Cambridge region. If anyone's in the UK, East Anglia, North London, based northern of London. And I went through school as one does, went through high school, early college, and I was one of those individuals that saw university at that time as something that you were kind of pushed into by society,
Hmm.
something you should do. And I didn't get it. If I'm honest, I was like, I don't want to be pigeonholed and spend all this money and be in debt for tens of years on studying geography or history or what should I do? Because I don't know. So I actually left before going to university and decided to go to School of Hard Knocks the world and went into hospitality. I dabbled in a fun acting gig, which I did for about 6 months at like a sort of a theme park. It was a castle where I did a scare attraction, a horror attraction for 6 months. Again, fun experience.
Hmm.
And then I went and worked for a furniture manufacturing company, small family business in the UK, and did virtually every single role there was, because I was happy to do it and it was keen to learn. And I found myself falling into sales. And for myself, very, very young, so I was talking late teens, early 20s, I found sales appealing because I really enjoyed my time acting, but it was more stable, it was consistent wage, and there was less drama, literally. I was like, this is great. Um,
For sure.
But I did that for a while, and because I didn't go to university, often people in the UK, and I'm sure it's the same in the States, before people go to university, they go on what's called a gap year. They go and travel and see the world and have these experiences. And I know I didn't do that, so I had that itch to scratch. So every year I did something what probably some people would seem as crazy, whether it was skydiving, bungee jumping. I went to Spain and ran with the bulls. I went to northern Norway and swam with killer whales. It was itching that adventure scratch.
Mm.
And one day, and I've got to credit to her for this, and she probably regrets it now. But my mum actually pulled me aside and she got me to come down to the local pub for lunch. And she pulled me aside and said, "You need to get the hell out of here. You need to go," which is a very brave thing for a parent to do. But she saw that I got to a point in my life in my very early 20s where I needed to see the world. I bought a house because I worked really hard very early, and had a little money to save. So I bought a small house, so I owned that. I had a partner, and but very much got into the grind very young. And she was like, "You need to go and see the world. Get out of here." Um, so I ended up leaving the country and selling my house, selling everything, and going, "Why not?" And I found scuba diving as an outlet, and that brought me to Australia, where I stayed in a place called Byron Bay, which is very famous, and learned how to scuba dive, then learned how to teach people how to scuba dive. So got lots of different levels, and then went traveling around Southeast Asia. I went to China, got deported, different story, and ended up going back to the UK because I was sent back to the UK for a grand total of 10 days. And it was 10 days. I remember sitting in a pub with all my friends that I'd known from before I left, really liking them and caring about them, but listening to what they were talking about and going, I don't care.
Mm.
We'd done that because of the experiences I'd had, and there's no right or wrong, but we just gone on different paths. And it was that moment that I went, I'm going back. I'm going back to Australia and I'm going to make this work and find a way to stay. And that's where I want to be. So I took a one-way flight back here to Australia and then very much absorbed myself into the diving industry, moved up to a place called Far North Queensland, a place called Cairns, the Great Barrier Reef. People are all familiar with that.
Sure.
And got more courses and got more licenses and did that for a career and a job. And that's how I ended up getting the right visa, the permanent residency visa to stay here and then get citizenship. With scuba diving, I say it's my leisure part of my life, if you like, because it's, you get people say all the time, wow, you've got the most amazing job in the world. And you do. It's great a lot of the time. Things do go wrong with scuba diving. I mean, I've encountered two people dying.
Oh,
With one I found on the bottom because they ran out of air, and one was a heart attack. That could happen anytime. But you do any job long enough, you might want to change. And especially one that's so absorbing with your lifestyles, out at sea half the time. And I wanted a bit normality. So then I fell into the corporate world of fast moving consumer goods and very quickly rose up the ranks over various periods of years and learned tons, good and bad, as one does in the corporate world. I moved from Far North Queensland down here to Brisbane. I took more senior roles. I took a national role in that business, and then the business had a restructure, which we'll probably talk about later, especially this because it's a big family ethos, which I'm very passionate about now, and needed all its leaders based in Sydney. And I'd moved once for the business already and was like, no. I made it clear before the restructure that that was never on the cards. So therefore, I was not included in the restructure, which is fair enough.
sure.
That was a big shift point for me. I'd put everything into it and it really got to me mentally. And I took a reset and a reset for my mental state, my viewpoint. What do I want to do? What my values? What's important to me? Everything else. What mistakes had I made? Because I definitely made a few in terms of just working too much and sacrificing too much and lessons you learn after the fact. And then went, what do I love to do? Which is to train, to teach. Going back to when I scuba dive, that was the heart of it, the core. Even in the corporate world, I love to do the advocacy side. I love to onboard new employees and train them on sales and see them develop and turn into leaders. So then I started a new business, which is called Glennon Peak Coaching, which is where now I do online leadership, sales, and career coaching to people across the globe. But I'm also contracted to a finance company as well, where I train sales and leadership, and it's great.
Mm.
That's a really short version because I've missed a
No,
couple of.
yeah, I love it. That gives the audience a kind of a sense of who you are And we'll go back now and we'll do some deep dives into stuff because there's a couple things I know about you from both your submission to us in our previous conversation that
I didn't mention that.
didn't come up in what
Yeah.
you just said. So
Yeah.
there's lots of territory to cover here, which I'm looking forward to. So let's go back. I always one of the things I try to do for our listeners, so like we talked about before we started recording, we have such high caliber people come on the podcast, and they're always so willing to talk about, hey, here's the decisions I made, and here's what I learned from them. Some of it was good, some of it wasn't so good. But one thing I try to do is point out commonalities because we have people from all walks of life. Some are like corporate, some are very free spirits, lots of different folks. And that's one of the things we love to do on the podcast is expose people to a wide variety of thought processes, of approaches, of ideas. Because, like, why would you not want as much information as you can get to
100%.
make decisions in your life? That doesn't make any sense to me. So that's what we try to do. But we see commonalities across all across that spectrum. One of them is making decisions and taking action. And so you made the decision very early on when you found yourself. I'm with you. So I don't know how old you are, but I'm 53. And I also left college without finishing and then went back and finished at a later date.
Mm.
Simply because I didn't want a piece of paper to stop me from rising through the corporate ranks when I was rising through the corporate ranks. But you at a very young age said, "Hey, what am I doing here? What why am I doing this?" Talk a little bit about that and how that one, how you made the decision, and two, what type of pushback or feedback did you get? Because it couldn't have all been people going, "Good for you, Jack. Great decision," right?
Oh, 100%. I think it's a trait that I've always had, and it doesn't always serve me well. It's to slightly go against the grain.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always serve me well. Sometimes you need to sort of step back and bite your tongue a little bit. And that it was really, it came to a point of mentally at one point, I just had enough. And I had a minor breakdown almost in my late teens, where I hit some depression. And I remember because I was getting all this pressure from around, from your peers, from your mates, and what they're doing, and from the father figures you're supposed to look up to at school because I didn't have one in real life at that time. My parents split up very young, and I had a stepfather that passed away and was an alcoholic and stuff as well. So I always strive for a father figure at school and in college, and they really did a poor job because I don't think they could quite work me out, if you know what I mean, because I was going against the grain. I went to a very nice school, and everyone was going to college and going to university, and that's what you do. And there's this kid that's going, no, I don't want to do, I don't know what I want to do, and I'm okay with that. Um, and I basically just had enough, and I remember we were playing sport. And I was playing what I call football, soccer for you guys. And I fell out with this striker who was just winding me up, and just all this emotion came out from me on the field. I ended up hitting him,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
to be honest. And I wouldn't advocate it, but it was just all this emotion that had been built up, and I walked off the field. And I got in my car, and I drove home, and that was it. And I wasn't coming back. And it was just, I got to a point of that pressure, everything around me. Not the best way to deal with it, but it was, you're young and you're still working things out. And there was a lot of judgment. The house leader we had at that sort of school college, I heard later on explain the situation very differently, that I had various issues and therefore that's why I wasn't coming back, which is lovely to hear. But anyway, again, people can't understand. And it was interesting because when you're young, I suppose when you get older, you have a very close knit of friends and you have associates and whatnot. And there were certain people who handled it amazingly and stepped up and were incredible and supportive with my decision and what mentally I was going through at the time. And there are other people that I thought would step up and that just couldn't handle it because they couldn't understand. And that's okay. I think probably at the time I felt let down by them, but in hindsight, you just understand. You go, it's a very foreign concept, and they struggle internally with that, and you can't judge them for that at the same time. So there was a very big mix of support and just making sure I was okay without judgment. That's really, what empathy is, with real empathy from people, still young themselves, to a lot of people just step back and judged from afar. But I didn't really get too much confrontation directly, because I think people just struggle to handle with it. And when you're young and people do that, they split. it's out of sight, out of
Mm.
mind. So there was a lot of second guessing in my mind because you're kind of wanting that, yes, you're making the right decision when you don't know. And you've got to really just go all in and be convinced you're doing the right thing. And I'm someone who's very true to my beliefs and my core, always have been, sometimes to my detriment. But it even, you know, society I've found is you're very much painted to do X, Y, Z. You know, you do this, you rise the ranks, you go to college, you have kids, da, 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 da. And as I've grown, I've recognized very quickly that certain things that's just not me. I mean, my wife and I, we don't have kids. We don't want kids. We never had kids. We never, and that's why that's becoming more prominent. That still goes against the grain.
Yep.
And, but therefore your friendship groups change because of that, because your friends who have kids hang out with other friends who have kids, and have those conversations because it's what's familiar to them and they've got in common. It's normal, it's human nature. So I think from that early stage where I made that decision, I had to become adaptable to my environment and go, you've got to be okay on your own. And sometimes I was, and sometimes I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, that's I really appreciate you kind of walking through that in such detail because you don't know when you're making decisions. You don't know if you're making the right decision or not. For a large part of my career, I worked for the largest grocery. You talked about fast moving consumer goods. I've
Yeah.
been in the grocery business for 30 plus years, right? Those are the ultimate fast moving consumer goods. And I worked at the largest grocery wholesaler in the country in the United States for about 15 years and owned by one guy, super smart guy, just hard worker, salt of the earth kind of guy, but has built, this multi-billion dollar fortune and multi-billion dollar company. And he used to tell a story and it would change every time because like it made sense that it changed every time because he hadn't memorized it. But the moral of it was could be good, could be bad. So,
Mm.
there's a Russian farmer and he's late getting his crops in the ground. And everybody says, oh, Sergey's screwed because he didn't get his crops in the ground early. And then there's an early frost and everybody who planted their crops lost them. But Sergey didn't because he didn't get his crops in the ground. Okay, great. So now Sergey's on top of the world. So now he plants his crops. But while he's doing it, he has his son helping him, and his son breaks his arm. Like, oh, poor Sergey. Now he doesn't have the labor he needs to get his crops in the ground. The next day, a war breaks out, and they recruit all the able-bodied men between 18 and 25 to go fight in the war. Well, Sergey's son is spared because he's got a broken arm and he can't go. And it just kind of goes on and on and on like that. You don't know how these
No,
decisions are going to play out, and you just got to do the best you can with the information you have. I would argue that almost all the successful people I know. Are there exceptions? Sure. But, and I say successful, the way I judge success is someone who's built a life that has meaning and purpose and they love getting up and living every day. And
I love that.
sometimes that means a lot of money. Sometimes it means a bunch of kids. Sometimes it means a relationship. You get to choose what's important to you. And it's very interesting. I have three sons, and I absolutely love my kids, and I can't imagine my life without them. With that said, I never had a burning desire to have kids. Like we
Mm.
had kids, but like it wouldn't have bothered me not to have kids in any way, shape, or form. But it's interesting to me how many people judge people that don't have kids, and I don't
Oh yeah.
understand. Like, it's not your life. Why do you fucking care? Like, what's the point?
Because people have to have an opinion. And again, it comes down to they don't understand. I mean, I remember one of my first decisions when I left. I said I went into hospitality, and then had the acting gig. At 18, I left home to live somewhere completely different in the UK to basically work at this castle. And it was for you guys probably imagine like a theme park where you've got actors, it's a scare attraction and an actor, basically. And I was not probably in a great headspace at that time. So was it the sensible move to leave a support network of home and friends and go somewhere into an environment with people much older, drama actors, not always the most stable environment either, lots and living together as well. We all lived and worked together. No, probably not the smartest idea at all in hindsight. But it was for me, it was desperately what I needed to do because I needed to get away from an environment and shake things up for me and go, I'm stepping away from this this area here to show I can stand on my own 2 feet. Yes, even at 18, or 17, 18, I was at the time, because this is the decision I've made. So I'm going all in. 6 months later, I'm coming back because I had a contract. And I came back and still wasn't in a great mental space, but then based myself and went into that furniture manufacturing company and had support again. But that first move was really important because it was showing that to myself more than anything else, that I could do it. And a lot of my decisions have been selfish. And I think a lot of people find that difficult because selfish is often a negative term. And I've needed to make these decisions, whether it was going there or leaving the country. Like you said, to have kids or not to have kids. Some people could say, you're not having kids, and that's selfish because, your parents might want you to have kids, and thankfully we don't have that problem. But some people have that perception. But I've always had this mantra that it's our life, and you said it absolutely spot on yourself, Joe. It's your life. You get it.
Right.
You get it once. And don't get me wrong, you shouldn't be. I'm not saying be selfish to all extent and to the detriment of others. That's different. But if you've got something core at your importance, life can end tomorrow, and I know we'll touch on this later on. That if it's really important, something you need to do to feel fulfilled in life, to feel value, right? And you said it yourself, whatever value that pitches to you, I'd encourage anyone to do it because otherwise you'll have a horrible thing, which is regret.
Yeah. Well, so just real quick, I think so. You said it. People assign a negative connotation to the word selfish, but I'd be interested to know how you define the word selfish because like I think about it like being on an airplane when they tell you if you're traveling with someone that's incapacitated or a young kid or whatever and you wind up having to deploy the oxygen mask, you got to put yours on first and then take care of the other person because if you don't, you're fucked because you're going to pass out first and you can't help them. So
Yep.
how do you define selfish? Like what do you mean when you say selfish? Because I haven't heard you
Uh,
describe anything selfish to me. From my perception, nothing you've described sounds remotely selfish to me yet.
well, good, thank you. I think that different perceptions of selfish depend on the individual. For me, my connotation of selfish here would be a negative one in my mind in terms of doing something to the advantage of you to the detriment of someone else.
Sure.
Um, I think sometimes when it comes to life decisions that are important to us as people, they can be perceived as selfish to others because they don't see the importance of it to you. They only see the negative to them. And,
Hmm.
again, I've had people speak to me about, leaving the UK was a selfish move because I left people behind effectively. Still stay connected with people, but that was an massively important move for me. I would not have the life I have now. I wouldn't have the wife I have now, if I hadn't have made that move. And it was a tricky move. And I remember you said earlier regarding that first step, you had negative people, saying you're not going to do this. I had so many people, Joe, say you'll be back in 3 months.
Hmm.
Honestly, so many. And I wasn't, for which is nice. But it's that moving country is not easy. It's not easy on the people you leave behind. I know that, but it's equally not easy for the people that when you do, you're the one that's leaving because you do miss individuals. There's all sorts of things pulling you back and wanting to see these individuals, but it's not a holiday, so that's time and money. You miss certain little things, whether it's foods or smells or aromas, and you've got this very warm feeling of what home is. And that changes over time, and this becomes home. It's a really, really weird dynamic that people experience. But I think the perception can be very easy is that's a selfish move to do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I get that. And look, I say it a lot. You can have, and I firmly believe this, you can have anything in life that you want, but you can't have everything. That's not the way life works. And
Yes.
so you have to decide what's most important to you and to pursue that. So like if you just using the kids example,
Mhm.
you have freedom and autonomy and you and your wife can make whatever decisions you want without having to worry about how it impacts your kids. I made different choices, so I don't have that particular autonomy. Now, flip it around. Every weekend, I get to go play golf with one of my sons. We get to have awesome family get togethers, and you don't have that because of the choices you've made. So there's trade offs. Like, and neither is right or wrong, neither is good or bad. They're just different. And it's no more right for me to cast my judgments on your choices than it would be for you to cast your judgment on my choices. I don't understand why that's hard for people to get. However, at my core, I don't know how much you know about US politics, but there's two major parties, Republican and Democrat. And I've never been,
My
yeah.
wife's American, so I get a lot of
Oh,
exposure.
okay. Got
She's
it.
from Boston, so I get a lot of exposure of what's going
Yeah.
on over there.
And I've never been a part of either party. I've never registered for either party because I fundamentally disagree so much with some things from each party. So I'm what we call a libertarian. And
Right.
like a libertarian really just wants everyone to leave everyone else alone. They want small government and they want you to keep as much of your money. You got to pay taxes for things like the military and things like roads. Got it. Like there needs to be some amount of that. But for the most part, I want people to keep their money, make their own choices, live their own life. And I don't care who you sleep with. Like if you're gay, straight, if you think you're a man who thinks they're a woman, I'm cool with it. Don't matter to me. You just don't get to tell me that I have to do the same thing or believe the same thing. Like it's
Agreed.
real. It's really that straightforward to me. And I think everyone's libertarian as it relates to themselves, but they don't want to let other people be, be libertarian. And that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand it at all. But whatever. That's just me. Um,
I
what do you
understand that.
what do you what do you think drove you talked about bungee jumping, you talked about
Mm,
skydiving, you talked about running with I'm assuming you went to Pamplona and ran with the bulls. Maybe there's
did.
other places, but
Yeah,
that's
no,
the most is it that one?
I did. Yeah, no, I did. I stayed just south of San Sebastian, which is a beautiful city if anyone gets to go. And yes, did go to Pamplona and run with the bulls.
That's
Um,
awesome. What do you think all those experiences were about? What do you think you were chasing at that point in your life?
Ooh, great question. I think it's lessened as I've got older. Probably that's normal as one gets older. I've always had a bit of adrenaline junkie about me.
Mm.
I've always been quite content in putting myself in dangerous positions. So not always wisely. A great example of that is I mentioned earlier after did my first stint in Australia, I went traveling. And this isn't the China deportation story. I started off in Thailand, in Bangkok, and myself and I met this English guy, really tall, like in Bangkok. Couldn't find a guy that stands out more than this individual. Tall, white as a white paint guy from the UK, blonde, really big smile, lovely, but absolutely target for everybody to talk to because he stood out so much. And we both stayed at this homestay, and it was during a wonderful event, which is Thai New Year called Songkran. And I'd recommend anyone to go to Thailand during Songkran because it's basically a massive water festival for a week where everyone shoots you with water guns, throws water bombs at you, has this huge party. It's absolutely insane, but it's great fun. During this time, there were rumblings of unrest in the government, and there's rebels called the Red Shirts. This is about 15, 16, 18 years ago, if anyone remembers. And the plan was, Chris, who I got to know, he was going south down to the islands, and I was doing the full loop. I was going to Cambodia and then through Vietnam and then through Laos and then northern Thailand down through Chiang Mai back to Bangkok. And we're going to come back and stay at the same place and meet. And we had a good timeline. The family we were staying with, there was the parents didn't speak any English and the daughter did. And they explained to us, look, things aren't great. Just keep an eye on the situation as you travel, basically, because there's unrest. There's red shirt, what they were called the red shirts. The protests that were happening before Songkran. We're expecting them to ramp up afterwards. So, me being young at that stage, going, well, that sounds fine. Don't worry about it. Carried on my travels. We kept in contact, all three of us, and rightly so, as we were traveling around, things were getting more severe. So we met back up in Bangkok afterwards, and we were back at this homestead. And then the red shirts were really sort of ramping up, and they created a protest zone, basically an encampment where they were going to blockade and they were going to shut the city down.
Mm.
effectively. You can probably find it on Google, red shirt protests. But basically the family came to myself and Chris and went, look, we hate to put you in a tricky position because we were going to be there for like another 5 days. Because I was guessing I knew I was going to China to then get deported from the UK to the UK. I knew what was coming, but I hate to put you in a horrible position, but my father and therefore us, we're passionate about this. The government is being badly run, it's corrupt, and we support the red shirts, so we're going in. Now, normal people, I think, at this point would go, really understand, let us find a hotel. I think that's probably a normal reaction. I looked at Chris and went, well, you've been amazing to us, both the first time we stayed and the second time we stayed. Why can't we come with you? Decisions I've made over the years are not always the most sensible. Um, which she responded with quite a lot of surprise, going, well, why on earth would you want to? And we'd really connected with this family, and again, you're young and you're silly and you're a bit sort of naive in this sense. And well, we want to give back and support because you've been amazing.
Yeah, it's a
And just
siege. They did a siege. Yeah, right.
exactly. So what they did, what the red shirts did, was every night they'd have runners and they would dig underneath the fences and literally run and get tuk-tuks and go and to people they knew and get barrels of water and barrels of rice. And that looked like fun. Not necessarily a sensible move, but the combined balance of being there, eating their food, drinking their water. So there's an element of internal guilt there. And also that scratch I mentioned earlier going, well, if not, then when?
Right.
Because there was a lot of risk involved. They were getting shot at by the army when they were doing these runs. So the combined guilt, why not? Adrenaline, I'm here once. I'm literally disconnected from the world. I didn't have a phone or anything. You know, my mum in the UK knew where I was, and I do feel for her because my God, I put her through the ringer through the years. But effectively, you're solo. And again, that's where the sort of selfish thing comes in, right? Being that reckless is that selfish. But we again had conversations with the girl and said, look, we feel really guilty. We want to do it. We got told absolutely no chance. No way. If you get shot, this is going to be on national, global television. It's going to harm our cause. No chance. We managed to convince them after about 24 hours of literally constantly nagging and going, well, what else are we doing here? If we can't look at him, he's 6'2". He stands out let him be, let him help. Okay, might be more of a target outside, but he can carry more. He's big. He's strong. So night 4, that's exactly what we did. So we dug under. We ran like hell. Huge adrenaline. I mean, I can. It's gonna be tingles. I can feel it now. Massive adrenaline jump. Never experienced getting shot at before, and it's the sound is probably the best way I can experience it. But the rush, and again, I wouldn't do it now. You do get to a point of this. But it was dope, and thankfully we were fine and we were safe. And literally within 48 hours, we had a really serious. After that, we had a serious sit down where the army was coming in, and with tanks, and they rushed us out. Bless them. And literally we did another run with all our bags. Oh, might have sort of rucksack thing. And they got some tuk-tuk, and we raced to the airport where we had to stay for a few days. And I remember just seeing, as we were driving, looking to my left and seeing the roads and just seeing fires at the end of each road. And that image will stay with me forever as the tanks were going in. But we're all still connected. We barely speak now, but we're still connected through social media. It's a positive thing about social media. We tingles. But that itch you mentioned, it's just a combination of living life now, wanting to experience things. I'm a huge advocate of travel, massive advocate for travel, because I think you experience more things by exposing yourself to different cultures, different people by traveling.
Yep.
And I very early on, I made a list, and I've still got it. It's pretty much done. Not that I'm done with life, but of things that I wanted to do around the world. And that itch is something that's always needed to be scratched. I mean, scuba diving instructing for years, and then working with sharks and falling in love with sharks. And people look at me now and go, "You're nuts." You spent time in the water with tiger sharks and bull sharks, and accidentally once a great white outside of a cage. But these are some of my highlights. I've got a shark tattoo on my arm because I think they're the most amazing things. But to other people, it's weird. Um, how do we side our makeup? I can't, not really sure. It's just part of how I'm wired.
Yeah, I love that though, because you're taking your shots. Like whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And like you've said, on hindsight, maybe some of them weren't the highest percentage choices. Maybe some of them weren't necessarily necessary. But look at all of the experiences that you have to draw from now in your life, and you wouldn't have had those if you were
Yeah,
afraid. And you can't let
100%.
fear stop you from doing the things that you want to do. And like, I get it, maybe digging out of the encampment and running through a hail of bullets wasn't the best choice, but you made it, right? So,
And it's and don't worry, I think a little bit of fear is healthy and wise. I
yes,
think it, I think the term fearless is, depending on the situation, is misguided, because I think you need fear to keep yourself alive
that's
to a
right.
certain degree and keep yourself grounded. Um, and also, you wouldn't get the adrenaline without the fear. I mean, it's that kicker. I mean, what's the film? Inception. They talk about the kick. Where when I don't know if you've seen the film, but when if you're falling back in your chair and you feel that your chair's about to go, that's that adrenaline kick, because it's that fear of falling. Um, it's very addictive, I think. And again, it's got less as I've got older. But you're right. I look at back on the different things I've done, and I'm very grateful that I've done them. Some of them weren't always wise, but in the moment, it was a decision I made. Um, and a good dinner time story now.
Yeah, for sure. And look, so we haven't got to it yet. We'll get to it in a bit, but that was not by any way, shape, or form Jack's closest brush with death. So, um, I want to hear the China deportation story because you've referenced it a couple of times before we get back into your career and talk about your coaching business and
I
and,
have
and
to.
the events. I know the health events are what kind of precipitated some of that, but let's talk about
Mm,
China first.
I have to say it's probably a little less exciting than it sounds. Because when I arrived in Southeast Asia, I knew I was doing this effective loop, going from Bangkok to Bangkok and then out um, to China. And what I didn't know was, and I don't know if it's still the same now, but to get into China, obviously you need a visa, but you need a visa and you can only get it within 30 days of going there. You can't just apply for it in 6 months in advance. It had to be within 30 days. So I was like, okay, well, I'll do it. I'll do it while I'm in Southeast Asia. It can't be that hard. Hmm. Turned out to be harder than I thought, because there's only so many Chinese embassies in Southeast Asia. So you have
Mm.
to be in a capital city where they are one. Literally every time I was in a capital city, it was a weekend or Songkran, public holiday. So it was closed. So, not to put too fine a point a bit, I was fucked. Um, so I thankfully, ironically, from working at the furniture company, I connected with someone who was working at the Shanghai consulate in China. And I still had their email because I was carrying my laptop around as I traveled. And I emailed this individual and went, just out of curiosity, this is my situation. What's going to happen? And bless him, he came back to me and gave me a complete rundown. He said, look, you're going to be fine. They're not going to let you in. You do need a visa. You cannot get one on the border. They're going to think you're trying to get round it. They're going to be very, very angry. And they're going to probably bring you into a room, interrogate you, shout at you a lot, but you're going to be okay. Because what's going to happen is they're going to put you on the quickest plane, as in the plane that's leaving the soonest, that has got availability, back to the UK. I can't tell you what direction it's going to go. I can't tell you how many stops. It might be a commercial plane. It might be a cargo plane. They're going to get you out of there. And I was like, well, I kind of had to come to terms with it really quickly, going, well, at least I know. And well, I get home. Okay, that's what's going to happen. So when I got to China, uh, they didn't like the fact that I was very relaxed about it. That seemed to make things worse. Because, you get to the passport control, you get the passport, you get the look down, you get the look up, you get the look down, you get the and I'm going, cool, let's go. Um, and in an interrogation room, I'm going, yeah, no, I know, sorry, my bad, probably a bit too flippant. And it didn't go down well. So yeah, I ended up leaving and getting deported, banned for 5 years. To be, I haven't been back since. So that wasn't a concern. Going back via Muscat of all places in Oman, again, very random. Only saw a little bit of it. And yeah, back on a two-way flight back to the UK. So do your research a bit more on visas is my recommendation. I'm normally quite fastidious and good about that. My mistake on that one, and yeah, I was told off quite verbally. They really shout and got in your face.
My bad. I love that. I can just picture these Chinese guys and gals with the uniforms on and
Yep.
the gold star on the shoulders
Yep.
screaming at you, and you're like, hey, my bad.
Sorry. Yeah, it made things a lot worse.
Oh, oh my gosh, that's awesome. What an awesome story. And again, like you're taking your shots. You don't know, you learn as you go. And I say a lot, experience is something you get right after you need it. And I personally have a ton of experience.
Well, what else? I mean, what else? I mean, the only other option I was going to do, and in the middle of, I didn't really get time much to think about it once I got to Bangkok with everything going on with the red shirt protest. But beforehand, when I was in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, what else was I going to do? Trying to organize a flight and pay for another flight from Bangkok to the UK? No, I've got a free one sorted. Done. That's
That's
just good
ex-
economics.
yeah, that's exactly the right way to look at it for sure. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. So pivoting back to kind of your professional trajectory. So you do the scare camp, you wind up at the furniture company,
Mhm.
and talk a little bit about, if you would. I followed a similar trajectory and I highly recommend it. I know people who have only done sales or only done accounting or only done marketing,
Mm.
and that's not a path I would have ever, me personally, I never would have been happy on that. However, it also made me so much better as a person and better as a business person because you learn so much when you do that process. Can you talk a little bit about, because I know it applies directly to what you're doing now.
Yeah.
I know you built a ton of skills going through that process. Talk a little about how you did that and what you learned just jumping around in that business.
Wow, I learned so much. I mean, I was really, and excuse the pun, I turned into a bit of jack of all trades, definitely the early stages. I'm trying to remember what role I initially joined. I think I joined like helping out with the logistics side of things in the office, and the business was split into two buildings. One side you had the production office where they had the main office where the MD worked and logistics was sorted out, and then you had the finishing room and the packing room, effectively the part of the building. The other building, you had the sales office, and you had where they made the furniture. So the furniture would be made, transported to the next building to get sprayed, finished, and packed, and then off for delivery. So I started in the production office, learning about the production side, learning about the logistics side, and point me to where you need me, basically. I spent time on the shop floor helping packing. I never sprayed. I did some hand finishing, so I learned that my finishing my hand isn't brilliant. I've got a bit of a shaky hand, so I had to kind of get a ruler and then do that kind of work.
Mm, yep.
Um, but that exposure was really good, and they had a two-woman sales team at one point, and one very dominant woman who was the head of sales, and in fact a kind of diminutive woman who was she reported to, and the dominant individual really clashed with the MD, very verbally, very big clashes, and very public, and she ended up quitting pretty much on the spot. And the other woman left with her because she kind of followed her basically everywhere she went. So the business was a little bit up shit creek without a paddle. And the MD basically went to me, "Do you want to give it a shot?" Yeah, sure, why not? Um, Point me in the direction, I'll go over. because it was telephone sales majority. I mean, it's not sort of headset stuff, but it's picking up the phone. You've got your client base because it was selling to interior designers
Mm.
around the UK. So it was building up relationships. It was you've got your client base, you've got your funnel, you've got your cold, your warm leads, your hot leads. You've got quoting, so you're massaging money prices, negotiating sometimes because it wasn't just the catalog of furniture. Sometimes they want something bespoke made as well that would need to be tailored to their design. So that would give me great exposure because I work with the manufacturing side with really great carpenters going, okay, how much do you think it's going to cost you to make this? Okay, I need to put the gross profit on that. So it's really mixture of skills that I was exposed to very early on. I had some great experiences where I made some really big cock ups. Um, and probably the biggest one, I remember I don't know if I was off ill or I was away for a bit, and I can't remember. Honestly, I think I was off ill for a bit. And I came back and I wanted to make a statement because I'm young and I'm a male and I've got an ego and I'm an idiot. And because I'm back, it's okay, I'm back, everything's saved. Yeah, look. Um, and what I did was I came back and I had someone reporting to me at the time, but I sold insanely and I broke every record under the sun that the business had ever had. Sounds great, but I oversold. So I
Oh yeah.
put the entire business under stress. And I was walking around like I'm the hottest shit in the world. Everyone's wanting to kill me. And I didn't get it initially. And it's a great lesson that I learned because I was so focused on what I was doing and trying to come in as a as the white knight. Don't worry, guys, I'm back. I'll save it. And not looking at the bigger picture. And it's a great lesson, especially in sales, is yeah, hit your targets, but don't. You can screw yourself by going too high. Because you've also yourself, you've got to lap those numbers at some point. Um, so I got loads of exposure, literally in every asset of that business, and I saw different styles of leadership as well, and that stuck with me to this day. Good styles and really bad ones as well. And you get that in smaller businesses because people know each other a bit more. You've got closer connections, but therefore you get outbursts in the offices, which probably shouldn't happen. And I made mistakes along the way as well. I was very young and learning leadership at a different level, and trying to manage conflict resolution. So I got in that time, it was like 7 years or something before I left the country. I learned so much and was able to use it much more down the line. And that helped me when I went back into the business world, if you like, after my leisure period of diving, apply those skills and those mistakes in the corporate world, whether it was from a regional sales level or a leadership level or a national leadership level as well.
Yeah, love that. So it's funny. I have a similar story. The first time I was a buyer, so I've done all sorts of different things, but I was a buyer, so I would literally we service out of the distribution center I worked at that point in my career. We serviced about 140 stores, grocery stores. And so I would buy certain categories, and I was responsible for making sure that when the stores ordered paper towels, we had paper towels. And back then, when products took a price increase, the way it worked back then, and it's totally changed in the industry now, 30 plus years later, but the salespeople for the paper products wanted you to buy a bunch of paper before their prices went up because it helped them make their numbers. And
Of
then
course.
we wanted to buy a bunch of product because I could buy it at the lower price and I could raise my price to the new price quicker and keep the difference and make a profit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so got it. All the paper category took like an 8% increase. And I was brand new as a buyer. I couldn't have been there more than 3 months. And I'm like, oh, this is great. I can make my quarter numbers for just from this fucking forward buy on this paper. So I sit down and I get my calculator out, my notepad, and I'm calculating everything out. And it doesn't sound like much, but you've got Bounty paper towels, you've got Brawny paper towels, you've got Sparkle paper towels, you've got all the different bath tissues and the facial tissues. And so I calculate all this out and I buy all this product. It was millions and millions of dollars worth of product. No big deal. Well, what I didn't know at that point in my career was that paper takes up a lot of fucking room in a warehouse, a lot. And uh, I didn't stagger the deliveries at all because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I had it all
Oh,
show up one day. And so I'm all excited because I've made this huge forward buy. I get to the distribution center. There's literally a line of trucks out the gate, the receiving gate, down the street, at least a quarter mile. The police are there because they have to do traffic control because there's so many trucks. The general manager and the operations manager are waiting for me to show up in the parking lot when I pull up to work at 7 in the morning. So they're like, "Hey, Joe, we want to talk about this paper buy." And I'm like, "Son of a bitch."
I'm guessing the penny dropped literally the moment you saw that.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah. My stomach just went to the floor. I'm like, son of a bitch. How did I fuck this up this bad? This is supposed to be a good thing. And I did it. I screwed it up 7 ways a Sunday. So yeah, but you learn, right? I mean, it's not
Yes,
fatal. You learn your lesson. You take your lumps. You figure it out. I went around and apologized to everybody. I went and bought a bunch of donuts and left them in the receiving dock, and I left them in the administrative office. And hey, sorry, my bad. I'm new. I'll get it figured out. You won't have to worry about this for me again. You just got to own your shit. That's just how it
you
works, you
do.
know.
You show contrition, you show humility, and that you've taken on board, and you see that you've made such a mistake that they've suffered for it. You own it,
That's
and
right.
then you move on. That's all you can do. You can't sit and swindle on it, and you can't, keep wallowing in it. You've got to stand up, own it, get accountable, and then learn and move forward.
Yeah, for sure. So let's
That's great.
fast
I've got
forward.
a great image in my head of all those trucks and the police, and you just
Oh,
walking in. It's
it
going
was
to be a good
yeah.
day.
It was brutal, man. It was brutal. It was no bueno for sure. Oh my gosh. So let's fast forward a little bit to kind of your sales role at the national stuff, because if I've got the chronology right, you were doing that until you had pretty significant health issues. And I want to talk a
Correct.
little bit about how you built that sales career because I'm very passionate. I say this a lot. I actually did a podcast episode on just sales, how to
Mm.
sell
Yeah.
stuff, and where my own opinion, and I know it's right from decades of experience, people have to learn to sell without selling. You actually want to become a problem solver and develop relationships. That's the way to sell. It is not pitching your, nobody gives a fuck if your product is awesome or not. They only care if it solves a problem that they have. And that's the way you've got to position it. But talk a little about how you built that career, because you're responsible for a lot of stuff before your health
Uh,
issues kind of
I
derailed
first,
things.
firstly, I bloody love your approach, Joe. I will always say, and it sometimes sounds weird to people, I've never loved sales because people, and I respect people who love sales. And what I mean by that, you get people who love the sale. They
I'm with
get
you.
that. They
Yeah,
get
I'm
that on.
100% with you. Yeah, I'm not that way. I'm not that
I'm
way.
not that way. I love solving problems. I've always had that to itch to scratch, if you like. And I joined the FMCG company from that diving career. And I was basically looked after a big region, Far North Queensland. It's about the size of Europe geographically.
Mm.
And I was the only one, and it'd been looked after poorly. And my role, whilst was a development manager, sales development manager for the region, I was the most isolated individual in the business because I was on my own. And you had other people based in Brisbane, lots of people together, Sydney, lots of people together, Melbourne, lots of people together. You had even a couple of people in WA and in Perth. They still had each other. I was on my own. So I'd taken it over from someone else who had done some really good stuff with part of the business and not a great reputation in others, which I learned because I was told very verbally by the clients. Um, and it was a combination of the two. Firstly, I think I was very instilled very on with a work ethic that I've just got. And I later on took two extremes to my own detriment, and a drive and a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And yes, whilst it was a job, I was getting paid to hit my targets, and that was it. I had a mantra: well, if I'm not going to do it, who else is? So I've got to make these brands cool again because they weren't. I've got to try and engage the marketplace, both in retail and both in the bars and restaurants and clubs and this sort of stuff. How do I do that? Because it's me. So in many ways, I approach the role. Yes, your role is ABC. If you do ABC, cool, you're doing a good job. I saw it as this is my business. I need to be doing A, B, C, D, E, F.
Yeah.
And again, it's been instilled in me. My mother's an entrepreneur. I think it was instilled in me from her to a certain degree, but it's that drive that some people have got, some people don't. And again, I think it can be done to your detriment, which certainly did later on when I was working too much. But that put me in a really good stead because it was you're on your own and you do it, and I had great success in that role. But I've always lent towards leadership, not always consciously. And even during scuba diving time, I ended up supervising the ranks there, becoming a senior instructor and helping implement new ways to do things to improve systems and how people work and whatnot. So I was sort of magnetized to that leadership element in the team because I was part of the Queensland team effectively. And I just tried to learn and lean a lot on my leader. And anytime he was away, I would be myself and another colleague would be he would lean on us to get things done. And there was an opportunity in the middle of my health issues, by the way, which I know we'll get to, where he moved on and I was offered the role to take over the state. This is in between me going back and forth to the hospital, which, like I said, we'll come to later on. But as you rightly said, you take a shot. And I love that term you've used. So I took the shot to take on the state and take on multiple states at the time. Learn that leadership, very different. This was during COVID, so we're all having to pivot and all these buzzword terms, which I literally wrote about recently and cringe. Um, and, try and lead a different way. And I end up moving. Actually, my wife ended up staying in Cairns for a while because she had stuff that she needed to finish to do. I needed to move down here. So we ended up living apart for about a year and a half, which was really tough.
Mm.
Um, Again, that's that sort of selfish balance. But she understood, and obviously she's down now, which is great. And then I've got an opportunity to take on the national role, which was basically to lead the sales team nationally, the field sales team nationally, and build a new leadership team underneath me. So that needed different skills, some that I got right, some that I definitely got wrong. But I was given the opportunity based on the success that I had with the smaller team in Queensland and one other state, and a great team around me at the same time. And I learned about how to build culture. I learned how to onboard. I built a brand new onboarding process because there wasn't one. It was very old school. You're probably familiar with, here's your iPad or here's your phone, hit the road. Or here's your list of clients. I remember
Figure
my
it
first,
out.
yeah, figure it out. You can't do that anymore. And I don't think and that's fair. I think, you want to try and set up people for success. So I built like a really extensive onboarding plan that was showing success. So there's a few of these things along with results, culture, new processes that I managed to learn and trial and not always get right. And then was given, the opportunity to take the national role on, which was brilliant. Not without its challenges.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, look, your story just screams it, and we've talked about it already, but you don't know where the path is leading you, but you just got to keep taking action, and it's going to
Mm.
lead you to a good spot. And now you had referenced it earlier, I'd referenced it as well, but in the middle of all this, you had uh like I don't know if near death experience. It sounds like near death experience, the right way to say it, but you had really serious health issues that you had to deal with. Talk a little bit about that if you wouldn't mind.
I'm not mine at all. It was a journey. It certainly wasn't just one event. It was like a domino effect. So it starts when I'm still doing my regional role, so my sort of development manager role, but I'm down on the Gold Coast for a get together with the team and got mini conference if you like. And as you probably experienced after conferences, you go out for a couple of drinks, dinner, and a bit of social. And so we go into this restaurant, and I'm walking in, and the best way I can explain it is as I walk in, my left foot feels like it's magnetized to the floor, which doesn't make sense because, funnily enough, my foot's not made of metal
Mm.
or a magnet. But it's the best. It's immediately what it felt like. And I'm doing that. I'm kind of ranking it. And this is very weird. And to my right, everyone's taking a seat on this really long table, and I managed to drag my leg to the head of the table next to the window, kind of crammed in, letting everyone do their thing. I'm looking down and my leg is dead. It's like it's a dead leg. I'm literally lifting it up and it's going to the floor, lifting it up,
Mm.
going to the floor. I make a stupid decision. To this day, I don't know why, but I decided to take my shoe off. Don't know why. Tried to massage some blood flow into my foot. Very difficult to get the shoe back on with a dead foot and a dead leg in hindsight. Um, a friend of mine who I love to bits and I count himself as just an incredibly special person, was going outside for a cigarette. At the time I smoked. I was like, oh, can I just join you? He was like, yeah, yeah, no worries. And I didn't want to make a scene and sort of indicate that anything was wrong with anyone else. And I remember they were sort of starting to bring out shots and drinks, and I made a wise decision to go, I'm not going to do that. One of the rare wise decisions. But I whispered to him, I was like, can you give me a hand? And he looked at me very strange. Why don't we give you a hand? Get up, you lazy git. Because we'd had one beer at this point. It wasn't like there was intoxication involved. I
Yeah.
was like, look, I'll explain outside. Just help me. Shut up. Get me out. Um, so we get outside and there's a bench on the street that I'm literally sort of plot myself down. And I explained to him, I was like, this is really weird. I feel fine as I'm talking to you now, but I've got no feeling in my leg and it's just dead. And oh, hang on, it's going up my body. And now it's up to my chest and it's up my shoulder, and I'm starting to slant on and to lean on this bench. And I'm like, this is weird. It's like pins and needles, but now there's no feeling at all. I'm literally again lifting my arm up and it's this limp. I'm like, this is really weird. And then it starts to dissipate, it starts to go away. And I'm like, oh, I'm starting to limp walking on my own. I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's just like a trapped nerve or something. I'm no doctor. I don't know. I've got first aid, but this is first aid experience, but this is well beyond my knowledge. I sit back down. I'm trying to clench my fist, and then it goes again. And I'm really slanting now. And a colleague of ours comes out and he's like, you guys all right? I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. But please don't tell anyone. I'm not sure. And he made the great call. He called his mum, who's a nurse. And sometimes you need a kick from someone else to make a wise decision. And he put on the phone and she said, get to hospital, you idiot. Because I think more of probably a male trait. We want to be too proud to, ask for help and whatnot. Um, and the guy that came out with me initially was like, okay, let's get an ambulance. I'm like, no chance I'm getting an ambulance. We can get an Uber. I'm fine. And the other guy who came out and had his mum on the phone, I said, look, please just go inside. Say everyone that I'm okay. My knees are playing up because a couple of years prior, I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. Big highlight of my life, which I missed out, funnily enough. But anyway, but my knees are knackered because of it, ironically. Worth it. So just say I'm being grumpy and my knees are hurting and I'm just being a grumpy git and they can moan about that. Fine. I'd rather that than drama.
Sure.
So yeah, we go to hospital, and everyone's experienced going to hospital. Obviously, naturally, I hope they haven't, and they've been to triage, ER, A&E, whatever they call it. You get to that window with usually someone who's not particularly happy to see you. Um, as you go, this is my problem. Fantastic, awesome. Sit down over there, wait for 5 hours. That was what I expected to happen. So myself and my good friend go to the window. I'm leaning like this at this point with my sort of face on the glass, going, "Hello." Um, Slight problem. Uh, and so to explain what happened, and this was the first indication of, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Because instead of sitting down for 5 hours, a door next adjacent rushes open, wheelchair in, sit down. You're coming with us. Bang. So I'm wheeled at the speed of a Formula One driver
Mm.
through through these wards and lifted up onto a bed. And suddenly, within what feels like seconds, I can't really tell in reality how long it was, but it feels like seconds. I'm looking up, and suddenly I've got multiple eyes on me. I've got my shirt being ripped open, all these pads going on, beep, beep, sounds going off, and it's just go, 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 go time. I kind of glance down as one does towards my feet to try and see my friend. He's just looking like a deer in headlights, like, what the hell's going on? Bless him. And my fear level is starting to go up.
Sure. Yeah.
We talked about fear earlier. And I can't remember at what point, and I'm in my early 30s at this point as well. It's important to mention that. But I hear someone say, a doctor or a nurse, stroke. I really struggle to put into words the level of fear that that put through my body,
Mm.
especially with my mantra of living life to the fullest, living life to the maximum as much as I possibly can, you know, doing the things I'd done, you know, like I said, Kilimanjaro, scuba diving, you know, whatever it might else might be. Stroke? What? Like, okay, I smoke, I probably shouldn't, but other than that, I'm young, I'm fit and healthy, you know, what? I just couldn't compute.
Yeah.
Uh, Again, we go back to lack of understanding and fear. So more tests go on. I go and have an MRI. I move towards. By this point, the lack of feeling has gone up to here, just below my nose. So I can wink, but I've got to heavily lift. Um, my friend stayed with me until 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I love him for that.
Yeah. No kidding.
And since then, he's had some issues, and I've been there for him because that's what you do for people like that. And I just want to, I always take a moment to recognize this individual. And if he listens to this, he knows who he is, as someone who will always be incredibly special to me. And I think if you see someone at the lowest and you're there for the lowest, there's that connection that will never go. Because he saw me in real fear. And at one point, I had tears going down my face because I was terrified. I just
How could you not? Well,
how
yeah,
can you
totally.
confusion, fear, lack of control because I'm not, I wouldn't say control freak, but I like to be in control to a certain degree. Probably on the cusp, if I'm honest. And it's all out the window. It's all out the window. Um, he ends up going, rightly so. And I wake up, and but sorry, before I wake up, so throughout, but I was in the Gold Coast, and that's about a 2.5 hour flight from home at this point. I'm going home the next day, in theory.
Fuck, this doesn't even happen where you live. This is like you're out on the road when this happens.
Yeah, so I'm away on this conference. I'm 2.5 hours flight from home. I'm very much someone, if I'm focused, that helps me. When I was younger, my mum gave me a nickname of Tigger because I would Tigger until I get what I wanted. That's right. Come on. And sometimes it helped me, sometimes not so much. They couldn't work out what had happened because the feeling started to dissipate again. And throughout the night, I would have a nurse come in and do strength tests with my body. So I'd be laying down with my feet upright, and she'd push one, push the other, see if, cognitive tests, effectively. And at that point, they weren't going to let me out the next day. And I basically started to barter with them. Sales came into it somehow and went, well, if I pass this test, can I get an hour back? Because I had a target. I think it was about 11 o'clock in the morning to get me to the airport for a 2 o'clock flight.
Sure, yeah,
And so I dialed in on that. I'm like, I'm getting on that flight. I'm getting home. Because when I'm home, at least I'm home, I'm safe, and then I can deal with whatever's going on.
sure.
And so I spent the night either half conscious or doing these tests with every ounce of mental and physical strength that I had. And thankfully, they agreed. The sensations are gone. They gave me aspirin to take because that's the blood thinners for those that don't know, as a precautionary, and said, "Look, we're going to refer you to a neurologist, and we're going to refer you to this other person up in Cairns when you're back home because we don't know what's gone wrong. We think you may have had a stroke, but then you've got none of the signs or symptoms after the fact. Doesn't quite make sense to us." Okay. And they couldn't see anything on the scans. It was all very weird. So I go back to Cairns. I'm not allowed to drive for a couple of weeks either. Legally, you're not allowed to after a suspected stroke for safety reasons. So I'm stuck at home, not in a good state mentally, very confused. I'm getting all these tests, not really getting any answers. Didn't have a great neurologist. There's another one that I found later on, which was brilliant. But all up and all, after weeks and weeks of tests, I'm basically told your body had a hiccup. We don't know. You're fine. Get on with it. Which is hard to compute.
No shit.
And I was left with a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, which I remember coming out at one day because my boss sent, because I was back to work and my boss sent an email to the whole team. And it's something so small. He didn't include my name in the email and he included everyone else's. And for some reason, that ticked a switch. It was completely irrational on my part. but I was apocalyptically angry. I remember talking to a colleague and screaming down the phone, does he want me to quit or what? And it was, if anyone saw that, it was a real red flag of you're not okay.
Yeah.
At the same time, and again, I wouldn't recommend this, within 6 weeks of this event happening, and I'll explain why I did this, with friends, I completed what's called Tough Mudder.
Well, I've done Tough Mudder. Yeah.
So within 6 weeks of of doing that, I took part and completed a full Tough Mudder event. Hindsight, bloody stupid. Um, it was my way of being really stubborn and probably belligerent, I would say, on the course of it. And
It's rebellion, right? I'm not accepting this.
I'm fine. They've told me I'm fine. Part of me knows I'm not fine, but I'm fine.
Yeah.
um,
Right.
I've literally got like a before and after photos of, yeah, you're fine, you're not. And I wasn't okay. But I had been told to take aspirin for 6 months just as a precautionary, but off you pop, son, you're fine. So that's what I did. You get on with life. Now, that was April, May 2019. So you carry on, get on with it. And I had a trip booked with a friend of mine from the UK to India for January 2020. And the trip was an adventure trip, as often they are. And we took a tuk-tuk. We were going to take a tuk-tuk from the northwest point of India in Rajasthan, driving the whole length of India in a tuk-tuk, just him and I, to the southeast west point for 2.5 weeks. An amazing way to see India. Not very safe because tuk-tuks are not very safe. They're three-wheeled engines.
I was going to say they're like the little cab trike things, right? That's what a tuk-tuk is. Yeah.
Absolutely spot on. Yeah. Yeah. Not designed for safety or high speed or reliability on some of the worst roads in the world. Um, but it's an adventure. So this was all planned, and he was worried. He said, "Look, are you sure you should be doing this after what's happened? With 6 months, we're going on this trip. Are you sure?" Da, 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 da. Wise questions to ask. I'm fine. Nothing will happen. Famous last words. During this trip, in the middle of literally nowhere, a hole in the wall where we're buying fuel and oil because we had to mix the fuel and oil for the engine. I've literally got this stuff in my hand and I start to go down
Oh, Jesus.
slowly, 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 slowly on. And there's a taste. And for anyone that's had this happen to them, there's a taste that you get. And it's like metallic. It's a metallic taste. If it touch wood and never happens to me again, there's no reason why it should, for what I'll explain later. But if I ever get that taste again, I know what's happening. So in this moment, I knew what was going on, and I was apocalyptically cross. My poor friend was just staring at me again, looking quite pale. But I'm literally on the floor in the dirt with one hand on oil, one hand on petrol, screaming every single, "You've got to be motherfucking kidding me!" Uh, because and you're in the middle of India, what do you do? So what I decided, I took aspirin with me. That was a good decision. I can say well done for me on that one, thankfully. So I said, look, get me back to where we're staying. It was a small little, I wouldn't even call it a motel. It had a bed, it had beds. It was fine. So get me back there. I'm going to take aspirin and I'm going to try and get this out of me. It went away last time, so it's going to go away this time, and I'm going to be
Sure.
fine.
Yeah. Right.
I'm not going near a hospital because there's not one anywhere nearby, and we're in the middle of India. So, with all due respect, fuck that, because they don't know the history, and I'm just not going to happen. So he got me back to the hotel. I laid down, I took aspirin, and I said, mate, with all respect, just go for a walk. Like, you can't do anything. You're just going to stress out and probably stress me out by being here. Go and get some space. This is horrible for you. I'm okay. I can't feel anything from here down on my left side, but I'm talking. My heart's beating. I'm talking, so my brain's working. Okay. That was my logic. I'm no doctor. I'm not saying a recommendation this at all. Um, but again, using logic only, my theory was this can went away last time. So whatever it is, it's some sort of blockage. So I had this visual thing in my head. Well, if I raise my heart, then I can get rid of it. So I started trying to hyperventilate. And then so literally in bed, I'm doing this is exercises, trying to move my body to try and get rid of it. And like I said, I have no idea if it made any difference whatsoever. Probably not. but it did eventually go away. So I was then very much faced with there is really a problem. There's really something not quite right here. But we are technically we're in a sort of race. We were doing this trip with a load of other random people from around the world. I'd recommend it to anyone. And there's a start and then the end. I'm getting to that end. That's my sort of target thing again, kind of similar to going home. So next day, I'm walking. We've got a few days left. Let's put it behind us. I asked him not to share what happened with my wife or my mother because I'm like, I can't help them until I know what's going wrong. But let's enjoy the time that we're here because it's a hell of an adventure. We're in India, man. We're in Tuk Tuk. We're in Goa right now. We're gonna go down to Cochin. Let's finish strong and have parties and drink and be merry. Fuck it. I can't pronounce. It goes down your trachea. That's my best effort. Not the best experience, but I call this test out because this is what found the problem. The problem was, and I'm starting to see it more, and I actually read an article 2 days ago, and someone in the news was sharing that they've got this, so maybe it's something that's going to be prominent, is when I was born, we've got a partition in our heart that separates the chambers.
Yep.
Basically, that partition is formed by two flaps that when you take your first breath, they go, and your heart beats, they seal.
Yep.
Now, mine never sealed. So for 30 odd years, it was doing that, catching bits of blood and whatever plasma and bits and pieces that go through your blood system, creating clots.
Clots. Yep.
Exactly. That then go through your system into your brain, stroke, ipso facto. Now, there's no, I mean, being born in the 80s, there was no test for that at that point. I'm aware of. And this was very confronting because this could have happened at any point in my life. Spending, years underwater on the top of a mountain. This happened at any point. I'm not here. So you have to take that bit of positivity and go, brilliant. We know what it is. We know now why it is. So what are we going to do about it?
How do we fix it? Right. Yeah.
How do we fix it? So needed to get heart surgery, an operation where they put this amazing thing. It's a fan effectively through a rod, and they put it through the two partitions. And as they pull the rod out, one end of the fan opens up, and they pull it again. Another end of the fan comes up, and they pull it one more time, and it seals either side of the partitions. Really clever, like amazing bit of engineering in medical. If anyone's caught up with I know it's a big story, but anyone's caught up with the timeline, we're now entering March 2020. So what else is going on in March 2020?
Right. The entire world shuts down.
Entire world shuts down. So all this is going on, and March, April, I'm going in for operations. More every time there's tests, every time there's stress involved, you're going on your own, you're solo. You have to get on with it yourself because no one else is allowed in.
Yep.
Tough. Get on with it. So it puts another element of it involved. So I go in for the operation. Thankfully, again, they show me the device beforehand, which is quite cool. Again, it helped me compute what's going on. Oh, that's going in my heart. That's cool. And in theory, you have this operation and you have a bit of recovery after time, but that's problem solved. You should never get another stroke again. You should never have a problem again in terms of this area of your body. In theory, no more or less than anyone else. Afterwards, you get on with life. Happy days. So I have this operation on the Thursday. I'm in hospital on the Friday. I have a picture, which I think I shared with you when I'm in hospital, and I'm working.
I still got the picture. Yes. I saved it. I've got one of myself in a similar situation. Yeah. Look, that's another parallel that we see across all of our guests is when there are I call them inflection points because I try not to put a positive or a negative connotation on them because going back to earlier, right? Could be good, could be bad. You don't know. But when the guests that come onto our podcast have those events take place in their life, they look at them and say, what can I learn from this? What are the takeaways that I can get from this? The other thing I'll say is there is nothing like a road trip to either get to know somebody or to clear your head. Like there is nothing else in the world. When I used to take over new teams, I would intentionally do a car road trip, not a flight road trip. Like we'd be in a car like a
Love that.
6 hour drive, spend a couple of days there and a 6 hour drive back because it forces uh, interaction. It forces you to get to know the people that are in that car. And so I love you talking about that and using it as a time to gather your thoughts. What should I learn from this? What do I do next? What's gone well? What hasn't gone well? Like it's just a time to take stock of everything that's gone on and clearly assess where you're at so you can make good decisions and move forward, right?
Oh, and it allowed me to put a couple of things. It allowed me to put a lot of things in perspective as well. I mean, I went to some great places, a couple of places stick out, and I ended up getting some tattoos because for some reason I always get tattoos when I go after I go traveling because they're my sort of memory piece. And Mount St. Helens was an incredibly special place, but I went to Yosemite, and that's an amazing place. And I remember a real cathartic moment when I was driving back sort of west from Yosemite down the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's a beautiful day, and I had a song on my iPhone or a playlist or whatever, and the lyrics just tipped a switch, and it was around saying I tried so hard, got so far, didn't really matter,
Mm.
and I started singing this song really probably badly, um, and smiling from ear to ear, but I had tears running down my face at the same time. And it was just this wave of emotion that had been probably bottled up that came over of putting everything in perspective and going, it didn't matter in the end because it was time for you to move on. And that was your place in the business, and your place no longer existed. Your role no longer existed. And it's okay, and you're going to be okay. And that was it was brilliant. And I will always remember it because like I said, it was that mix of letting go, some sadness there because it's okay to be sad, therefore the tears, but the relief of letting go at the same time, and like I said, the smile that I couldn't control from ear to ear, going, it's okay. You did everything you could. You made some mistakes on the way. You said you reference yourself, you make mistakes, you learn from them. You very rarely learn from them in the moment. You learn from them retrospectively in time.
Yep.
You can look back now and go on, that was dumb. Would have done that differently. How can you move forward? And it was a real cathartic moment that I think, yeah, you're right. You only get really on road trips.
I love that it happened while Lincoln Park was playing. That's awesome.
Yeah. Great track, man. Great track.
That is a great track. You're right. So now you start up. I'm assuming this is the point you started your business that you're running now. Is that right?
Pretty much, yeah. I started consulting different areas, and that's my first venture as well into sort of doing this sort of thing, doing interviews on podcasts. And the amount of times people will go, "So what's your business?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really have one. I'm consulting here and there, and I'm on that platform." And a friend of mine went, "Why don't you do it yourself?" Basically, and sometimes Nick takes a nudge and you go, "Well, yeah, why not?" So again, I just started at small fry and learned loads in terms of building a website. Never done that before. Learning a bit more about marketing online, but really doing it slow paced. I've been very determined because there are so many coaches globally who invest so much into marketing and in massively high promises. We'll give you a 7-step program to guarantee you 8 figures in three. Politely, fuck that. To be
100% with you. Totally.
It's not my style. I would rather have a handful of clients that I really care about and build it over years and years, and it be something that I'm passionate about and that I care about and I can put into time, and then I can have a contract or employment elsewhere that helps fund that than be bullshit.
Exactly. And your fucking solution doesn't fix every problem. Stop telling people that it does. You don't
Because it's
know.
lies. Because it's
Yes.
lies.
It's
And
exactly
what
right.
I do is with my coaching is everyone is different, every issue is different. I mean, I work with individuals in so many different, I've got some people who are heavily into work for a company that's a gym. I've got someone who's in finance. I've got some people in hospitality, some people in tourism. All completely different problems, different ages, different points in their life. Some are new to sales, some are new to are having career problems and leadership problems themselves. So you can't just go, well, here's a program done.
Just run
You
the
have to,
playbook. The playbook always works. No, it doesn't.
bollocks. So I explore their it is I explore what they're going through. And I remember I had someone very early on and didn't end up coaching them, which is, absolutely everyone's call, because they went, well, how many sessions am I going to need? How long is it going to take to them fixed?
Who knows?
I can't tell you that. So yeah, but like, there's a program in the UK that kind of gives me a price for 6 months and then I'm done. I'm like, well, what if it takes three and then I've screwed you over?
Right.
You know, that's not, you're not going to be happy with that, but you're going to get out of this as much as you put in. I'm going to give you guidance and give you all the tools that I believe you need. But if you get off the call and go and sit on the sofa and do bugger all and don't do anything with it, who's wasting their time and money? I'm never going to guarantee anyone success, but the people that I work with are brilliant and it's authentic and you see the growth and change in them. Some of them sometimes need to kick up the arse to remember they need to book, which is quite entertaining because you remember with Friday. Oh, I forgot. But that's part of working with people. But it's a passion and it's something that I'm in no rush to make millions out of. I never have been. I'm financially driven to a point of living the life that I have.
Yeah.
But again, you supplement that by contracting out to larger organizations. As I said, I do coaching for a finance company. Brilliant. And I love it. And I work with brilliant people. Um, but that allows me the flexibility and the autonomy to also run my business and help people.
I love that. Is there when you do take on clients or businesses or whatever you call them, do you see a common problem or a common thought process that gets people stuck?
Great question. I think there's a couple right now. Um, One, a lack of leadership is massive in terms, and this is twofold. One in what I call modern leadership, um, emotional intelligence leadership, people first leadership. There's a huge lack of that. So employees are being led badly. I had an example recently of someone who was told by their leader that, this is a high performing individual, but their leader said, if you don't get the next hire right, that's really going to be on you. So if I hire the wrong person, I'm somehow accountable for that. Hiring is a little bit of a guesswork. We all agree and we hope for the best when you hire someone. You take them on face value on paper, you take them face value in the interview, but in 3 weeks later, they decide to rob you blind. How am I to
Look,
know?
yeah, I've literally hired hundreds of people and I've gotten a lot of them really right and I've gotten a lot of them dead ass wrong.
Me too,
Yeah.
100%. And that's just one example I can think of that's off the top of my head. And so the leadership is twofold. One is there's horrendous leadership out there, which is misguided. Two, there's such a severe lack of leadership coaching and training. So many people are put into positions of leadership because they're the best at what they do, not because
Yes.
it's anything to do with individuals. And I don't blame those individuals who are put in those positions. I have sympathy for them because they're expected to succeed and their KPI to succeed without the tools. And it's not fair.
You're setting them up to fail, man. You're
Set them up to
100%
fail.
correct. Yes.
You might be the best person at, I'm going to say finance, for example. I'm just picking that one out there, or sales. The best salesman of the team. Oh, we've got an opening for to be the sales manager. He goes in it because he's the best person in sales. Yeah, but he's a bit of an asshole. You do know that.
Right.
or he's too young, or he hasn't got the experience, or he hasn't been taught or given the tools. How on earth is he expected to lead this team of experienced people when he doesn't know? He hasn't, and it's crazy how often that's happening. So I'd say that as aspect is one is leadership, and that's kind of two sides of the same coin. And the other one is people lost in their careers at different points, whether they're early 20s, 30s, even 40s, going, I don't know what I want to do. I
Mm.
don't know what I should do. I'm being told this. Is this right? How do I do this? There is a real gap of direction. And because careers are changing, obviously you've got the integration of AI coming in. And there's a real gap of well, can I change careers at 20, at 30, at 40, 50, whatever it might be? What happens if it's taken out of my control? So many restructures, real incredible lack of job security, more than ever, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Are most of your client, well, so let me ask it a different way. You work with people anywhere in the world, is that right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah, we've got a couple over there in the States, and I've got one on and off over in the UK, and the majority of the rest are here in Australia.
Yep. And are there, it's obviously leadership is one of the things that you work with people on.
Mm.
Are there other things that you work with people on? Do you do any process engineering? Do you do any business analysis? Do you do any of those kinds of things?
Yeah, so the three sort of main areas of my business that I sort of focus on is leadership, career transition, and sales.
Hmm.
So those are the three prongs, if you like. Um, in my consulting role, my contract role, sorry, that I have, I do a lot of training analysis and build plans for long-term training plans that are tailored to the individuals and tailored to the business. There's kind of two different facets to it. Sales is such a mixture of what's needed at the time. Again, it's pointed and tailored to the individual. I've got some people who are brilliant at their roles, but now they want to venture out into a business and learn how to sell, the
Hmm.
foundations, how to do telephone sales, simple things like, smiling, old school. Who knew? So there's such a range, sales, as you know, because you've got the experience, is a huge topic itself. You bite size it as much as you can. So all the way from negotiation techniques and closing to objection handling, foundations in terms of introductions, first impressions, all sorts within sales. And career transitions, it's so tailored to the individual. I've worked with someone, well, nearly for a year now, actually comes to September, who, when we started working together, they'd been made redundant so many times, and they were really struggling internally because it was, is it me? It isn't. It wasn't. It was the individual was in a industry that's constantly changing, evolving, and they ran projects. The projects end. Don't need you anymore. Move
Yeah.
on.
Right.
As tough as that is. And they were, and I helped the individual find out their core, focus on the role they really wanted, go after the role, land the role. And now we're working on some of the baggage they brought from their previous roles into this current role and how they interact with leadership in the role. And expectations they have on leadership and communication and feedback with the leadership, so they succeed in that role they're in. So it's very much sometimes a journey of where the individual's at.
Got it. That makes perfect sense. On the you hit the nail on the head in terms of people many times get promoted because they were good at the previous job and they get
Yeah.
promoted into a position where the skills and tools that you need to be successful in the new job are very different than the job
Mm.
that they just had. And I read a book. I've been in that situation where and am a high performer. I'm a grinder. I drive. I'm tenacious. I'm all of those things. And to your point, like sometimes that can be abrasive to people. Like sometimes people don't. I've had to learn to temper that over the years. I don't think anything is sending an email at 11 o'clock at night, but when you're galactic commander and people get an email at 11 o'clock at night, they freak out because they think it's like, it must be important if Joe sent an email at 11 o'clock at night. To me, it's a passing thought. And I
Mm.
read this book. The reason I'm saying this is I read this book called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. Have you ever read it?
No, that sounds great.
It is. And so exactly what it sounds like is the tools that you bring to your leadership role are not necessarily the tools that you need to be successful in your leadership role. And it boiled there were a lot of, I think it was like 27 different points that it
Mm.
made, but one of them really really resonated with me, and it's that point was everybody on the face of the earth is motivated partially or wholly by one of four things. One is power, one is money, one is popularity, and one is recognition. And
Exactly.
I read that and I'm like, oh man, that's so brilliant. And I knew immediately for me it's power. And that's not like sitting around twirling my mustache trying to figure out how to rule the world. I resonated a lot with you as you were telling your stories about, hey, I was working at that time because that's what I had control over. I wanted to go do Tough Mudder because it exercised control. I want to control my own environment. You can offer me $1 billion, and if it's something I don't want to do, I'll tell you to go fuck yourself. I don't want your $1 billion. You keep it, you
Yeah,
know?
me too.
And I think about that from a leadership perspective when I'm dealing with people. What motivates this person? Is it power? Is it money? Is it recognition, or is it popularity? And, popularity's never been high on my list. And I couch that statement a little bit because it's not that I want to be unpopular. It's not that I don't care if people like me. I do, but I'm not going to change who I am to make that happen. And
I'm exactly
yeah,
exactly.
I'm going to be me, and I hope you like me. And if you don't, got it. Duly noted. No ill will. Like, you're entitled to your opinion. You're entitled to not like me. That's okay. I'm good with it. You know? So
I think
that
another
does
element.
motivate me.
I love that. I think another element of the leadership thing, kind of going back all the way when we started talking about sort of going to college and having kids and doing what you should do. And I remember when I was stepping up to a national role, I was doing interviews for my role, someone to take over me. And I remember a cool conversation with one of the guys, and it was in the team that I was leading at the time, and he wanted to step up. And I had a really good, and I've got to credit to him because he was so mature about it, and that isn't always the case. And I asked him, why do you want this role? What drives you? And what I'm wanting to hear is a passion for people. I want to, see the team grow. That's what I'm wanting to hear. And he goes, well, that's what you need to do, isn't it? I want, you need to climb the ladder. I need to. That's what you do, isn't it? I'm like, is it? Says who? So, well, that's, if I want to progress and get more money, and my money's great, but it's not my driver. But if I want to progress, up in the business, I need to step up, don't I? Like, yeah, but you're going to succeed because if I give you this role and really people isn't your main passion, 6 months time, are you still going to be here?
Mm,
Are you going to be succeeding? Are you going to be hating it because the job you're expected to do isn't one that you like or care about? And we had a really good in-depth conversation where he understood that the path that he thought he should be taking, because that's what society expects, that's what's being told, isn't the one that he wants. Yes, he still wants to grow and he wants to step up but sometimes you need to go sideways to go up. Sometimes you need to go step back to go up. And it was a really, like I said, I can't credit him enough because he was so mature about it. And I can imagine having different conversations where it doesn't go so well. And you have people in teams who want to take, and I've seen it and I've spoken to people about it, they go for a job, they don't get it, and therefore they quit. You know,
yeah.
um, absolute credit to him because he got it, because leadership is about the team and the people that you're leading. It's not about you. And I will often ask people, what do you want to be, a leader or a boss? Because if you want to be a boss, I can't help you.
I'm not your guy.
I'm not your guy. Bosses are things of the past. They still exist in everyday's like week of life, but they're not on my wavelength. And it's not the style or approach that I align with. You want to be a leader? Brilliant. Let's talk about why you want to be a leader. What makes you tick in the morning? What gives you passion? Can you be at, say, a business awards event, sit down, and if you've got an option of winning an award yourself or your team wins an award, which one do you want? If you're saying here that you want the team one, brilliant. If you want your one, it's not for you.
Yeah. It's funny because I think back, I've always assumed leadership roles even as a kid.
Mm.
And like I have several examples throughout my life that what you just said has always resonated with me. It's always been more important to me that the team succeeds than I get recognition for it. Don't get me wrong, I want to be a big part of why the team
Absolutely.
succeeds. Like
Oh,
I look, I have a huge ego. I absolutely have a huge ego, but it does not get in the way of what the goal is. And I remember so I was really good at two sports when I was younger. I was a good baseball player and I was a good soccer player. And like I had scholarship offers for both of those sports. And after my senior season of soccer, I had a good friend. Well, I was a defender. I was a center back, and I was really good friends with our sweeper. And we were a perfect team because
mm.
I ran the attack and I was aggressive and I always took like their premier forward and just like took them out. Like I would just mark them one on one and like, you're not scoring today. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
but I wasn't very fast, and our sweeper was very fast. So I would direct the player. Like I understood time and space, which is why I was good at defense.
Yeah.
Offense is creating time and space. Defense is minimizing time and space. It's really that basic. But I would show the offensive player into unproductive space, and the sweeper would come zipping in, take care of the business, and that was that. And so
Yeah.
we were a really hard team to score on. Well, in our final game of that year, I guess this was our junior year now that I think about it, but he broke his arm like a bad. He went down chasing a guy and snapped his arm in half. Like his bone was, I was the first one to get to him. His bone was sticking out of his arm when I got to him. And that was the end of his season. And our coach was going to, like, the end of the season awards that everybody votes on that were a big deal back in the day, all conference, all state, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was going. And I said, Coach, hey, make sure that this guy gets an award. If you have to sacrifice me to get him in, do it. I don't give a fuck about these
Again.
awards. I want to win
Yeah.
games. And sure as shit, he was first team and he deserved it too. It wasn't a charity case at all. I just wanted to make sure that he knew how important he was to our team. And that was a good way to do it. And it was something I could offer because I legitimately didn't care about it. I don't give a fuck. Like, is there a win up on the board? Then I'm happy. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all I judge. Did we win the game? Sweet. Good. We're good.
Yeah.
And that's leadership. Like I always tell people, the very first rule of leadership that I can give you is accept all criticism and deflect all praise. So if your team gets commended for something, you should talk about the team, not I, but we, they.
We.
The team did a great job. The team killed it. The team worked extra hours. They
Yeah.
really pulled together. And if someone says, hey, your team's fucking up right now, the first thing out of your mouth should be, that's on me. Tell me what the problem is and I'll fix it.
What can I do?
I'll get with the team, right? If you can't understand that, you probably shouldn't be in a leadership role. Just that basic thing.
And it's a sad reality is that there's a lot that don't. There's a lot that don't. And it's a lot of ego, but misguided ego. And it's again, that's that boss mantra. I've got to this level, so now you do what I tell you. Rather than what can I do to support? I know you're going through a really shitty time right now. I know we're under pressure with the numbers. I know the business isn't doing well. The company's not doing very well, or we're getting pressure from high above. Let me take that. Let me help you.
Yep.
Where are the gaps?
So, totally.
You've lost a member. You've lost a member of your team. So I know you're having to fill that gap. Normally, I know we do all these reports, and I need you to do this time. I know you're not going to get time to do that. How? Give me one of those reports. I'll do that for you during this time. Let me step in. Because you want everyone to succeed together. It's not just about you.
And plus it gives you so much credibility with the team. So like I'm in stores a lot, and one of the things I'll do is jump in a check stand. I'll just literally start checking people's groceries out. For two reasons. One, it gives me a chance to talk to customers, and like I can ask them, how do you like the store? What are we doing good? What are we not doing well? Et cetera, et cetera. Right. And then two, it gives me instant credibility with the team. Like I'll jump in for a cashier and someone will bring up bananas and they'll be like, the code for bananas. And I'm like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? I know the code for bananas. It's 4011. The code's never changed. I've done this for 30 years. I know the code for green grapes. I know the code for navel oranges. Like I know this business. I've done your job. I did your job a lot. And like
but it also gives you credibility. It gives you that exposure, but it also shows your humility. That makes you more approachable, because you're not being high and mighty and never seeing them and overseeing them. You're comfortable in the weeds with them, and there's nothing wrong with that, because we've all got a job to do. We're all going in the same direction. It's not you and them, it's us.
I think cashier is the most important job in our company because you are the face of the company to the public. I think it's by far the most important job. And plus, let's say I'm sick one day and I can't work, or a cashier is sick one day and can't work. Which one hurts the business more?
100%.
You think the guy sitting in my office is going to have some big impact on the business that particular day? But we're fucked at that store if we don't have the right number of cashiers. Like it hurts.
And I would say that resonates and is the case across multiple industries, multiple countries. But unfortunately, reality is on those larger scale, the importance or the recognition isn't balanced by that structure you mentioned there.
Yeah.
The cashier, the people on the front of the line aren't given. I'm not talking about monetary. I get the monetary thing because there's structure in that, but aren't given the recognition that, or the definitely right now, the job security, which is becoming more important than ever.
Yes. Yes. Completely agree. Who is I don't know, ideal is the wrong way to say it, but who is a person that should think about reaching out to you and talking to you about working with you? What's going on in their world? Who's an ideal client for you?
Great question. I don't know if there is one specific ideal. I think it goes down to those three prongs. Definitely if you're new to leadership, like people who are new to leadership, they don't, like I said, they don't get the support, and I'm 100% there for that. And how I coach is I coach through my experience, and I'm very open as I have been today with my mistakes as well. But that means I can see them as or before they're happening in
And
others.
look at all the experience that we've talked through today, guys. I am telling you, like, holy shit.
Exactly. So people new in leadership, people experienced in leadership, probably less likely wanting to, but definitely people new to sales, and anyone that's going through a career transition or questionable career transition, concerned about their job security, having to find a new job after being in a business for 20, 30 years. What do I do? What's this AI thing that scans my resume now? Why can't a person just see it? Um, so these sorts of profiles, I would say I would recommend. I'm love to help.
I love that. Absolutely love it. And look, guys, you don't have to go far like we always do. All of Jack's contact information will be in the show notes. So you can go down there, find his website, find his contact information, reach out to him. Look, you've heard for, a couple hours now what a great guy he is. Even just having a conversation with him. Shit. Look, you could do a lot worse in the world than increasing your network and having an awesome individual like Jack to reach out to. Because maybe now's not the right time, but maybe 6 months from now, you find yourself in a different situation. You go, but I forgot. I can reach out and get some help and support here. And the other thing I'll say about coaching, I agree with Jack's assessment. So I'm not a big fan at all of here's the penultimate, the only 7 steps you ever need to be successful. I call bullshit on that whole racket. It's bullshit.
So do I.
However, yeah, coaching is invaluable. And I always use Tom Brady as an example because it's an easy thing for people to grasp. So, widely considered the best quarterback to ever play professional football in the United States. He, at all points in his career, had a head coach. He had an offensive coordinator. He had a quarterbacks coach. He had a running backs coach to work with. He had an offensive line coach to work with. He had a receivers coach to work with, and then various other people that contributed things to his education and his success. And if you can tell me that you're better at your profession than Tom Brady was at his, fine, I'll leave you alone on the coaching. But until then, I strongly suggest that you think about having a mentor, having a coach, having somebody you can go to that can rise up above the minutia that you're involved in and help you see the bigger picture and help you get better. I don't know anybody who is invested in good coaching, and I'm choosing my words carefully here, about who is invested in good coaching, who hasn't said the ROI on that investment is one of the best ROIs I've ever gotten. I learned so much. I parlayed that into success in my relationships. I conveyed that to success in my business. I conveyed that to success in my personal life. Like it has a ripple effect. So uh, I'm a big advocate of the right coaching. And look, we vet people before we bring them on. We've had people that want to come on and just pitch X, Y, or Z, being a course, being a 7-step program. Not what we do here. And I think everyone knows that about Salty Ginger Talk. What we do is find authentic people like Jack who can come tell their story, show you what they've learned, help you make a connection to something that can really be beneficial to you. So, official Salty Ginger Talk seal of approval for what it's worth. I think it's worth a lot. I'm an
I
experienced
think
guy.
so.
I'm an experienced guy. I've done a lot of shit in my life too. And I'm good at reading people and I call bullshit on people real quick. They don't wind up making it on the podcast. So, um, highly recommend for what it's worth. So one thing I always do, Jack, I ask a lot of questions. We cover a lot of territory, and that's one of the things
Yes.
I love about the podcast. However, I don't want to disenfranchise a guest, so I always turn it over to them as we wind our conversation down. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you feel strongly about, or is there any topic we haven't talked about that you want to make sure we talk about while we're in front of the audience? And it's okay if we've covered it all, no problem. We're not trying to put the spotlight on you, but I want to give you an opportunity to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
That's very kind and very appreciated. Really good question and really tough to answer at the end because we have covered a lot. We've covered a hell of a lot, and it's topics that I'm always comfortable talking about because again, I've got nothing to hide. At the same time, it's my journey. And if your listeners and anyone can resonate with the journey and go, "Oh, I've done that too. Oops, yeah, I made that mistake too," or that sounds similar, then brilliant. It makes it all worthwhile. I can't think of a specific subject off the top of my head. No, I think we have covered a lot.
No, it's all
I
good. Yeah.
I would love to add, just because often I think people have, because just gonna go back on the coaching thing for a second, because people are so force fed a lot of this bullshit in their eyes. YouTube, social media, this idea that you've got to be better today than you were yesterday. If you're not, you're a failure. Don't get me started. Um, Often uber masculine as well, which I think is some of the worst.
Yeah.
Um, they have an opinion of coaching that is just that. And it's that if you choose it, but you don't have to. It's why actually on my website I put a free 30-minute introduction for anybody. Completely free. Come and have a chat. Work out what coaching could be for you. Because that's it. It's what that could be for the individual. Equally, and I love what you said earlier, have a chat, see if you like me. You might think I'm an asshole. And I hope you don't, genuinely, because I do care. But if you do, then I'm the absolute opposite of the type of coach that you need or want. Um, I think it's all in perception as well. Like I said, there's so much that's shoved down our throats with YouTube, and I often put podcasts on YouTube when I'm working. I've got nothing against YouTube, but social media as well. Algorithms are all there, so we get force fed what we want to hear, and we never get a different opinion. So if we've clicked on this link of this coach that's over the top and seven, like I said, seven steps of bullshit program that you mentioned before, um that's all they're going to see in terms of what coaching is, what business coaching is, what career coaching is. And I guess so my main point to come with is it's not, it is if you want, but if you want something else, it's out there too, and that's not just me, that's hundreds of different other people. My last two things that I was probably not questions, but they're quotes that I always try and share whenever I do any sort of speaking or talking. One is the best piece of advice that I've ever been given, and one that's a quote from someone I think everyone will know, but I think it's quite aspirational in some ways. The 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 um the advice that I was given when I was very young is in your lowest of moments, and we all have them in life, whether we like to or not, it's going to happen. When we're having self-doubt, self-questions about ourselves, what we're doing, what journey we're on, take a moment to stop, have a look around at the people who are closest to you and the people who are supporting you. They are the truest and most accurate reflection of who you really are. And take that moment to look at them and know that you're going to be okay. That's the first one. The second one is a quote from Gordon Ramsay, and I'm a big fan of Mr. Ramsay. Um, I don't know if anyone's seen any of his TV shows, Kitchen Nightmares. I would love that job. I'd love his job to go and do that. Brilliant. Go in there and see a situation and be able to say what you really want to say, but then solve it and fix it and put it together. Yes, love that. Um, but I remember seeing an interview with him not long ago, and he talked about adversity. And the journey that obviously we've spoken about a lot today has had its moment of adversity. I think you talked about inflexes, right? And I think a lot of the time people are so cotton walled in a very young age, especially these days, more so, that they don't get adversity until it's not only not sometimes too late, but it's too late for it to become overcoming. And he came up with a great quote, which is, the sooner and better in life that you can get comfortable in the storm, you can learn to dance in the rain. And I love that because we've talked about adversity today and I've had my fair share, but I wouldn't change a single one. Even the heart stuff, the stroke stuff, I wouldn't change a single one. They were shit at the time, but they've molded me to be the person I am. And whilst I'm far from perfect, I've got negative things that I say and do occasionally, and I try to be the best person in the form I can be. But again, you combine the two, I look around me, I've got incredible people around me and people I love and care about and a good life. And I wouldn't have had that happen without the adversity.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And you're 100% right. We are the sum total of all the experiences we bring to the table. And I heard Tony Robbins talk about it one time to a woman who was blaming her father for everything. And he said,
Mm.
you know, we should call your dad and tell him all of this right now. We should just get this out there. And she said, great. He said, but you also need to be ready to give him credit for everything good that's happened in your life. Because if he's responsible for everything bad that's happened in your life, he's also responsible for everything that's good that's happened in your life. Are you prepared to do that? And she said, well, no. He said, well, then you need to quit bullshitting yourself and take some accountability for the things that have gone wrong in your life. And that's a part of it. The hard parts are a part of it. And you have to learn to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have
Yep.
to learn to fight through adversity because everybody has adversity. And look, you put it well, so much better and so much more succinctly than my rambling manifesto here. But it's my my long-winded way of agreeing with your final comments. I absolutely love them. So great job.
It's also, it's okay not to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you're gonna have adversity. You're gonna have days that are shit and the days that you just want to be on the sofa and watch Netflix. Do it. If you need to do it for that day, just don't make it a month.
Right. Don't get stuck there.
Yeah.
Don't get stuck there. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming on, man. I loved our conversation. You did a great job. Really appreciate you doing the podcast. We'll keep in touch. You know, maybe down the road we could do a round two and talk about some other stuff. Maybe we do a deep dive on leadership or a deep dive on sales. I think there's lots of things we could talk about that I think would be beneficial for the audience. So just thank you again.
No, no, thank you, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. As we talked before when we did our interview, I've had lots of different experience of both ends of the scale of doing podcasts, and yours is definitely up in the higher end. It's great conversation, and like you said yourself, authentic. It's been a really enjoyable conversation, which is great, right?
Well, appreciate that. Appreciate it very much. So, yeah, we'll keep in touch and
Yeah,
really
definitely.
appreciate your time. I know it's you like you talked about before we jumped on, it's a holiday in Brisbane and go enjoy the rest of your holiday.
I will. Thank you ever so much. Take care as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack. Really appreciate it.
See ya.
All right. Okay, guys, there you go. So, again, we don't disappoint. We don't have inauthentic guests. We don't have people that don't know what they're talking about. We don't have people that can't share a ton of valuable stuff with you to help you build the life that you want. And really, really appreciate Jack spending that time with us. Loved our conversation, loved all of the things that he shared with us. Talk about a life. That guy has lived a life. So he is not afraid to take his shots. He's not afraid to go after what he wants. Sometimes that's gone really well for him. Sometimes it hasn't gone so well for him. But even when it didn't, he's learned and he's grown from it. And that's a valuable lesson that we can all take away from it. So stayed on with him a little bit after the podcast, and we will definitely have him back on somewhere down the road and have more conversation with him about leadership and sales in particular, the two topics that I'm very interested in talking to him more about. So, yeah, just thanks again, Jack. Really appreciate it. So, hey, look, James puts it up over here every day. Head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are available there. Links to all our social media accounts are available there. We publish a newsletter every weekday you can subscribe to there. Make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to our podcast, whatever platform you consume it on. It's great if you can do that. We're going to keep finding awesome people like Jack, having great conversations with them. We're going to keep giving you tips and ideas and action steps you can take to help you start building the life that you want right now. So don't miss our next episode. You don't want to miss it because there's valuable stuff in there. We will see you there.